When he was growing up, he had a pseudonym. His name was Yasumoto. That's a Japanese name. And he was living undercover. He wanted to be accepted in Japan. He couldn't because he was Korean. And the crucial moment is that he decided when he was 15, 16 to go to America to learn English and forge a new chapter out of Japan. And that's a sort of liberation day.
Can I be cynical for a second? I kind of question. So I actually have relatives who are assigning to Korean. So, obviously did not experience that firsthand, but have heard stories about, what it was like back then. And it was very difficult. So I'm sure he didn't have it easy. With that being said, I know, his dad was one of the first people in the town to own a car. He was traveling abroad in his early teens. By the time he was 16, he was living in the US to study English. To me, a part of me is did he really have it? I'm sure he
Yeah.
had it hard. How hard was it really? And I feel like he has this great personality of being a chameleon and a charismatic storyteller. How much of that is kind of tying into the background there?
Oh, he's a great storyteller and he exaggerates. But there is no question that for the first 3 or 4 years, things were tough. He didn't actually, by the way, grow up inside the shanty town.
Yeah.
I've actually been, it was on the outskirts. So it was the grandparents actually lived in the shanty town, in this shack. And as you say, he was born in 1957. By the early 60s, this family, the Son family, is doing pretty well. And his father is the pachinko king in Kyushu. He's a millionaire. He's got lots of money, and so have the relatives. And they did have foreign cars, but they were confined to one segment of the economy. Masa didn't go to the University of Tokyo. He didn't go. He didn't go and join an investment bank or the central bank or anything like that. He couldn't do that. So that's why he
Right.
went to Japan. So I agree with you. It's not dirt poor for that long, but there's still significant obstacles to him making his fortune.
Do you think that Masa sees himself as more Japanese or Korean? So, speaking on a personal level, so I grew up in Japan, but obviously my face is not Asian, and so my experience is very different. So it's complicated when people ask, where are you from or which country do you identify with? But in Masa's case, obviously his face is Asian, his passport's Japanese, and for all intents and purposes, he's essentially Japanese, but what do you think he sees himself as?
Well, it's a great question because if you think about his name, Masayoshi is Japanese and
Right.
Son is Korean, and he
Very
and he
symbolic.
kept his he kept his Korean name even though he took Japanese citizenship, and effectively naturalized. So he had the best of both worlds. Now he claims to be the first one ever to have done that, and that's not actually true, as I put in the book. But he wanted to be both. He didn't want to completely disown his Korean heritage. But it's important to remember that he didn't actually speak Korean. He'd only went to Korea for the first time in his early teens with his grandmother. So he really wanted to be Japanese. And I don't accept, as one or two Japanese business people who've said to me, that he doesn't like Japan, he's an outsider. I don't buy that. I think actually sometimes Masa is almost more Japanese than the Japanese because he wants to be seen as the most successful businessman, the richest person. He's actually not. He vies with the founder of Uniqlo, Tadashi Yanai. But but he does, I think. I think he is a patriot, and I think he cares about Japan and its place in the world.
Was there things from the conversations you had with him that made you think that way? Because I think the perspective that especially a lot of people in Japan have is he's this great leader that represents, I think, Japan, especially in the tech kind of sphere. But he's also super international. He's also very much a hustler that is quite different from Japanese people's typical characteristics. He does business in the US, he does business and investments in China. And I think that also plays into this, like, okay, is he really, um, I guess, building or fighting for Japan, or is he really just an international man that's kind of building this tech legacy for himself?
Well, he's certainly a global capitalist. And as you rightly say, yes, he went back to Japan, by the way, and that was difficult setting up his own business. He couldn't get a credit line for a
Yeah.
while from a bank. But he went into the software distribution business and eventually succeeded. But when the Japan economy crashed, the bubble burst, he went back to America and started building businesses there. And then he went into China with his Alibaba investment and taking advantage of the internet. And then he goes into India. He's investing in Indian businesses. I mean, and then he's raising money in the Gulf. I mean, this is a true uh, global capitalist, the man who's benefited from borderless finance. And, you could argue, you could make the point that some people have is if he cares so much about Japan, how come he hasn't invested in more Japanese companies? And he cares about he's been a venture capitalist. He's formed ventures. He's formed alliances to raise money for venture in Japan. But the record is pretty sparse. Now, I think that's partly true, but it's also true that Japan has not been very good at spawning a kind of Silicon Valley VC venture capital setup. So that he's seen better opportunities, particularly in America.
So I have this theory or observation, I should say, that American billionaires, when they conquer the US or conquer the world, they tend to want to go to space. Whereas Japanese billionaires, it seems like when they conquer Japan, they want to go to America. Is that consistent with Masa's story?
I think Masa is much more interested in earthly matters and making lots of money on the ground. I don't think he has any ambitions to go into outer space. I don't think he's interested in colonizing Mars. I think he sees enormous opportunities, particularly in the American economy, on artificial intelligence. And that's why he's formed the partnership with Sam Altman of OpenAI and Larry Ellison, Project Stargate, where he's promised rather outlandishly to raise $500 billion for AI infrastructure, as he calls it. That's data centers and probably chips as well over the next 4 years. I don't think he'll get to that figure, but I think he's making a serious play in the area of artificial general intelligence. And that's what he's been talking about for 25 years.